Hi, everyone. My name is Ali Danziger. I am co-founder and president of Integrate Agency, a full-service marketing agency in Houston and Austin. We're so excited that you're here today for our session on conversion rate optimization and search engine optimization with our CMO, Paul Colgan. I'll let him introduce himself now and walk you through our presentation. We will be taking questions throughout and then leave time at the end of the hour for additional Q&A. This is being recorded and will be available on our website and emailed out following the presentation. Thank you again, and here you go, Paul.
Hi, everyone. As Ali mentioned, I'm Paul Colgan, Chief Marketing Officer here at Integrate. And as CMO, I oversee what and how we market for our clients and their brands. I specifically manage our teams that create great work for search engine optimization, user experience design, and other channels such as social media and paid advertising. So I want to thank everyone for joining today, and I hope we can help you guys kickstart your websites into higher gear. So let's kick started, yeah. So today's presentation is specifically geared around amping up your website performance in these two specific areas. So what exactly is SEO and CRO? So Ali, if you want to go to the next slide. Yeah, so let's start with a couple of definitions. So starting with SEO, at this point, it's a pretty common phrase in the digital world, but in case you don't know what it means, it stands for search engine optimization. It's defined as the practice of increasing both the quantity and the quality of traffic to a website through organic search results. So essentially, it's getting people to click on listings on a Google search results page that you don't have to pay for. Now, we could do a full week seminar here and go through all of the different attributes and the different variables that make up successful SEO, but we're going to cut to the chase. We're going to walk you through what you can do right now and some of the most important aspects to it. And the second acronym is a little less known. It's CRO. That stands for conversion rate optimization. And it's the process of creating a user experience that motivates a web user to progress down a path and complete a goal that's advantageous to your business. So why are we talking about these two concepts together? In short, what you're going to see on the next slide is that SEO, if you think about it from the perspective of a funnel, SEO actually brings in the traffic, and then CRO gets them through the funnel. But first, let's talk about why. So why you should focus on SEO and CRO. First off, there's two likelihoods. Your competition isn't focused on these efforts, and that would allow you to get ahead if you start focusing on them. And if they are focused on them, you're already behind, so it's time to catch up. So you got to look at your competition, see where they are, and how that can be, how both these focuses can actually be advantageous for you. It also sets you up for future success. It future-proofs your business. It's an investment of time that continues to pay off into the future. CRO allows you to also better monetize your current traffic. And that goes for any traffic, whether you're paying for it or whether you're already getting free organic traffic. So that's key for making sure that you actually get them down that path towards your goal. So you want to optimize for CRO. SEO, and then SEO specifically is the least expensive digital acquisition channel out there. Even with the investment of your time, or even if you pay for SEO services, the revenue you'll make off of SEO allows you to invest more in other advertising channels and brings your overall blended cost to acquire down. So what you're going to see as we progress through this webinar, you'll notice that we aren't breaking up this presentation into a CRO section and an SEO section. These two concepts are so intertwined and so crucial that the work that you do on your site from here will help you in both areas at the same time. And you shouldn't take one into account without understanding the other. So now I know you guys are gung-ho to get started, and I'm really getting you motivated so far, but we have to do some preparation first. There's things you're going to need before you can really get to work. So trust me, it's going to make things much easier as you start implementing things. And the first thing I want you guys to do is actually dive into your audience and your customer data. So that's the first thing you do as you start to get prepped. So if you listen to our last webinar on social media, you heard us discuss the importance of getting to know your audience. It's the same thing here. You need to know who's on your website and who you're attracting. You need to understand their motivations. What are their needs and what questions do they need answered? To do that, you need to first tap into your own information and your data. At the end of the day, all you're trying to do is to uncover the why. One way to do this is through your own website analytics and reports, and find out some information about who's currently coming to your website. If you don't have Google Analytics on your site right now, that's the first thing that you need to do after this webinar. There's plenty of resources out there, including Google itself, that'll show you how to do this, but you have to start collecting that data as soon as possible. We'd also recommend setting up Google Search Console, which gives you some information about what organic search queries people are using to hit your site, amongst other critical things that Google Search Console actually provides to you. Another thing is actually, if you have a site search on your website, that usually comes with some sort of report that tells you what people are searching once they arrive, or once they type something in. What they type into that search field is straight from the horse's mouth. They're telling you exactly what they need and what questions they have. Use it. Use it to gain a broader understanding of your user, and use it to answer questions and solve their problems. Do you have customer surveys that you've done in the past? Do you have access to employees who speak directly to your customer? For example, customer service and sales reps are a treasure trove of information. They possess all the commonly asked questions that your customers and your potential new customers are already asking. Tap into that. Go through the exercise, and this is a pretty robust process, and we're just going to kind of scrape the surface of this here. But go through the exercise of building out personas. We could spend an entire day in a workshop going through how to do this. We recommend you do some research on the process of creating personas, and you can do a Google search, and there's a lot out there. Essentially, you're grouping your customers into personas by their attributes and needs. As you start to gather your data, you'll notice trends on commonalities that allows you to group them together. For example, we're working with have worked with a consumer product company that makes a special kind of hand sanitizer. As we started digging into who was buying the product and who was coming to their site, we found several distinct groups began to emerge. One of them was, quote unquote, the mom who was worried about sending their kids back to school. Another was a small business owner who needed a long-lasting solution for their employees. So the exercise you can do is to get note cards, give your persona group a name such as Molly Mom, for example, and write down their needs and the questions that they'd ask. What are her concerns? What are her interests? Anything else that you know about her? This exercise is going to help guide you through this entire project. The entire point here is to know your audience as well as possible so you can provide better solutions to them. So the next slide, we're going to dive into your website's primary focus. You have to know this in advance. We recommend every website have at least one main focus or action that falls in line with your overall business goals. You're trying to get someone to order a product, book an appointment, use your services. You want a prospect to fill out a form, download something. Maybe you're asking a visitor to make a donation. That's a single point of focus that you want them to do. Your main goal should drive nearly everything you do on your site. It dictates what audiences you target. It drives what and how you write content. It determines what questions you ask and so on. Now, don't get me wrong. It's okay to have secondary actions, but make sure those secondary actions support your main focus, and don't let those disturb your one true goal. As an example, you might want a user to sign up for your email newsletter. That's a great secondary goal because it allows you to nurture that relationship so you can get that user to eventually take an action towards your primary goal. But don't let that newsletter sign up be so distracting or annoying that you lose the visitor altogether. Keep your main focus on your primary goal. Okay, so next we want you to get your keywords ready. This is going to be key as you start to actually do the work. To further prep you to get ready to make enhancements, we want you to know your keywords. First, you need to define let's define what we're actually talking about here. So those of you unfamiliar with what a keyword is, it's simply a word or a collection of words, aka a query, used to search information through a search engine, namely Google. Almost everybody uses Google, but you can also think of it in terms of what people are searching YouTube for. Bing, Yahoo, those are other search engines that people use. For the purposes of this webinar, I'm going to use keywords synonymously with keywords or search queries. Just understand that I don't mean a single word. It's generally a collection of words. So as time passes, search queries and phrases are actually getting longer and longer. What we're wanting to accomplish here is to develop an initial set for you guys. Start with 25 to 40 keywords that will get you started. So how do you actually do that? I want you to type into your current data. We just talked about using Search Console to help you learn more about your audience. Most likely, several of the keywords found there will help kick off your list. What's driving your current organic traffic? That's a good start. So you'll want to further optimize your site for those keywords to drive even more traffic. You might also find some high potential keywords in recurring searches on your site. Also look to find new ideas, use keyword tools to help you find out keyword opportunities. There's numerous free tools out there, such as Ahrefs. Google Keyword Planner is a good one if you have a Google account, and things like Word Tracker. Most of these tools will allow you to type in potential keywords, and then they'll show you variations along with estimated search volume and some type of difficulty score, meaning how easy is it to get ranked or how much competition will you face. We want you to find nuggets. The key is to look for keyword opportunities that have decent estimated traffic numbers with low difficulty and lower competition. The report will give you some type of gauge on that. Make sure you're only going after relevant keywords that have a chance to convert. They should be aligned with your business, product, services, or industry. Going after fringe or unrelated keywords just for the sake of traffic is wasting your time and will only drive down your conversion rate. So don't waste your time with those. Run a keyword ranking report. You're gonna need this handy as you go through the process, so you know where you currently rank for your list of keywords. They may be first page, third page. You may not rank at all, but you're gonna want to know that. So again, you can use tools like Ahrefs or SEMrush or Ubersuggest, but there are free tools out there. You'll need this to not only track your progress, but to help drive your content strategy. So now you've been through some of the exercises and you've prepped the information you need to actually do the work. So it's time to get to work. So the first thing you want to focus on.
Hey, Paul, real quick, I'm just going to chime in and just remind people, we've got a ton of information here. Feel free to chime in with any questions if you have them, and we'll make sure to pause what we're talking about and answer this so that this information is relevant directly to you. So we've got a ton here and just want to make sure it's useful. I'll let Paul get back to it, but just a reminder to feel free.
Ali can interrupt me, and so I'm going to keep going through it because I know we got a lot, but Ali will interrupt me if a question pops up. Yeah, so the first thing we want you to do is actually tune up your value proposition. This is perhaps the most important thing you can do and will have the biggest impact on conversion. It's always the first thing I look at when doing a website analysis. How clearly does the website communicate its value proposition? It has to be crystal clear to the user. You only have a few seconds to make an impression, and you have to hook them to stay longer. And getting them to stay longer starts with a clear value proposition. So what is it exactly? So I actually think HubSpot probably defines it best, but a value proposition isn't just the product or services you agree to deliver to the customer. It's the ingredient of your business that solves a problem competitors can't. Your value proposition is your unique identifier. Without it, people don't have a reason to work with you over somebody else. So Let's take a look at some of the elements of actually improving your value proposition and how you should actually lay that out. So what are the elements? We recommend you first start with your homepage headline. This will be the most read sentence on your entire website. You need a value prop summary headline that succinctly and immediately tells them why you're different. Don't waste real estate and time using taglines and slogans here, please, or being cute in the main headline. When you're Apple or you're Walmart, you can get cute. Until then, get clear. Assume the user knows next to nothing about your company and use the main headline area to get your value proposition message across. Also, for SEO purposes, you'll want to use your main keyword in this headline. As you see in these examples from Dollar Shave Club, and one of these is actually one of their original, the first one at the bottom is one of their original headlines, and the one behind it is actually the one they're currently using now. They're masters at boiling down their value proposition into an easy to digest statement in their headline. If you're not doing this, it's one of the, after you get Google Analytics set up, that's one of the first things that you should actually do when you get to work. So then under the headline, add a more detailed subheadline. Don't repeat the headline in a different way. Don't say the same thing twice. Use it to further support why your offer is different or why you are different. So think about differentiation points here. Next, you'll want to add to the page some supporting bullets or sections that clearly lay out the benefits of your product or services. Those can be placed just under your main hero or the top of the page. From there, we recommend that you add a video or a graphic. This isn't required, but it does help. This video or graphic should enhance your message. It's okay to even repeat some of the content in your video that you already have on the page, but think about it as a 20 to 30 second visual or a video that reinforces why you're different. Some users will actually just completely skip over your content and go straight to the video because they're more visual learners. And then next, this is mainly for your homepage that we're talking about, but it can be applicable to any page where you have multiple segments or multiple personas entering your website on a certain page. So we want you to create a persona switchboard. These are pathways or links to pages that speak directly to these personas that you've created. These pages would be new content that you would create that answers those questions to those specific personas and what questions they need answers in order to proceed. Along, of course, with a strong call to action to get them down that path of conversion. Don't forget your homepage isn't the only place that users enter your website. We're going to talk more in depth about content next, but as you go through the content makeover of your site, you want to ensure that you're clearly laying out the benefits of doing business with you and why you're different. All right, so let's turn next to actually your content strategy. So by revamping your value proposition and doing an audit on your pages, you've already initiated the first step in developing a new content strategy. So I want to lay out some rules and guidelines you're going to need as you start to dig into this new content strategy. First, remember to use your keywords. You created the list. Obviously this is advantageous for SEO. So when you're writing, use your keywords, place them in the header. Use that keyword in the content a time or two, but also find synonyms and find a few related keywords that are ready that you can use as well. And then a quick tip, don't overuse them. Do not put the keyword in every sentence. Don't overuse it. Google will see that as keywords stuffing and spamming. And always write for the user first, which leads to actually writing with cognitive fluency. All that means is make it easy to understand. Speak the user's language, not yours. Avoid company and industry jargon, acronyms, abbreviations, etc. Make sure your content is readable and easy to understand. If you are covering a highly technical or scientific concept, that's okay. Just make sure you understand that make sure you use layman's terms. Don't assume the user knows what you're talking about. There are numerous tools out there you can use to help you with this. If your site is on WordPress, for example, there's numerous plugins. One is Yoast that helps score your content for readability. and SEO for that matter at the same time. So that's a good plugin you'll hear me mention several times throughout the rest of this webinar. If you're not using it, we highly recommend it. So when you're writing content, avoid what we call word walls. Unless you're writing a New York Times article, you should structure your content so it's more easily digestible by breaking up the content into sections. Add headers for skimmers and break it into bullets if you have to. It's easier to read. And for those skimmers, a lot of times they skip over big, long paragraphs. If you can use visuals, use them. If you can tell a story using graphics, all the better. One of the reasons for this is that visuals generally have a higher memory recall over just simple content and simple text. So a we versus you test. So what is that? So as you're developing your content, I want you to take note of how many times you're using the terms we or I as opposed to you. Your content should be about the user. Don't tell them what we offer or what I offer. Tell them how you benefit from your products or services. Sometimes using we or I is unavoidable, and that's okay. But this exercise is a good way to ensure that you're keeping the focus of the content on the user. And don't just focus on creating new content. Always be improving the content that you've already produced in the past, assuming you already have content on your website. So with that in mind, the first step in implementing your new content strategy is actually to start making the content that you already have better. So next slide, Allie. All right, so presumably you already have content on your website. It might be ranking, it might not. Either way, you can improve it so that it becomes a more viable weapon for you to bring in new traffic. So find opportunistic content. Use your keyword ranking report that we discussed earlier. Find out what keywords and what pages are currently ranking on page 2, 3, or 4. You're ranking 11 or you're ranking 23. Those are your top priority pages. Start by adding more relevant content to them and rewriting parts to include more relevant keywords. Improving these pages is a faster way to drive more traffic to your site than starting from scratch with new content, even though you're going to do that too. So improve your headers. Your headers are crucial for both conversion and SEO. It's the first thing the user will read on the page, and it's usually what's called an H1 tag or H tags, which is a key contributor to on-page SEO success. That means you must optimize for both the reader and the SEO crawler. You do that by ensuring that the headers summarize what the page and its content is about and uses the primary keyword you want that page to rank for. So quick tip, do a little reading on structuring H tags. They work a lot like a story outline you probably put together when you are writing something in elementary school. They actually have structure to them. So for example, each one of your web pages should only have a single H1 tag as an example. So ask yourself, are you solving problems? This goes back to your customer data and your research. What questions are they asking? Add content that answers those questions and make sure you're sprinkling in your keywords while you do. And then last, make this a routine. You're going to be producing new content too. So this is a cycle you'll want to create and keep up with. Put it on your to-do list once a quarter. Spend a few hours analyzing and improving what you've already published. It will be worth it from an SEO traffic and conversions perspective to do that. Make it a routine. So once you've gone through and improved your current content, let's talk about producing new content. You should always have a plan to produce new, highly relevant content for not only users you have coming to your site, but also to act as a magnet to bring new users in. So remember that site search report we discussed earlier. That's a good place to start to find new topics. For example, if you sell pool supplies and your users keep searching for how to use chemical shock, that's an indicator that you should have content that's findable that answers that question. The next, use your keyword list that you developed and search query reports to mine new topics as well. Do you rank yet for those keywords? If not, it's time to write a new piece that's optimized for that keyword. Take a water break for a second. Any questions so far?
We actually do have a question, so glad you're taking the water break. Stan asked what some good plugins are for just content in general. I'm assuming, Stan, correct me if we were asking about different plugins, but for content strategy, whether it's making your current content, improving your current content, or producing new content.
Yeah, so I mentioned the Yoast plugin. That one's really nice because it just sits inside of WordPress if you're using WordPress. There's some other browser-based plugins, like we use Grammarly as an example to kind of help with phrasing certain things. That's a couple that are really handy that we use a lot. But if you're using WordPress, you can actually just do a search for in the add a new plugin section, and there'll be a host of free ones that you can just you can tap into. And pretty much all CMS platforms have the ability to add something like a plugin, for free, pretty much. That'll help you do this.
Okay.
All right.
Remember, just chime in with any questions you guys have.
Yeah.
You ready for the next one?
Yeah, well, I got a couple more on this one. So when you're writing new content, we want you to always emphasize quality over quantity. It sounds cliche, but it's more important, for example, to spend 4x the amount of time on one great piece of content than splitting out 4 pieces of content with low quality, low value pieces. So spend your time on producing high quality content. Produce long form content, blog posts, articles that are highly relevant to your target audience. It's not necessarily a correlation between more word count means higher ranking, but studies do show that articles, web pages with between 1,800 and 2,000 words tend to rank better. So you do need to do more long-term content. Create a calendar to keep you on track. This is simply an organizational tactic to hold yourself accountable, and then publicize it. Once you publish a new piece, get it out there. Post it on social media, get some feedback. Internally link it up to other relevant content that you've written on your site already. So those are some good ways to get started from a content perspective, and I know it's a lot. So go ahead, Ali. So the next thing we want you to do is actually, let's start thinking about how you can grease the funnel and start plugging holes in your conversion flow. So what does that mean? We want you to follow the path of the user towards them achieving your primary goal of the website. If you're taking this approach and following this plan, you've already actually started this process with the work you've done on your value proposition and your content work. You've hopefully given your web users a reason to stick around, and you've piqued their interest. Now you must ensure that they can functionally and efficiently get through the process. So start at the beginning and work your way through the confirmation message of your conversion. Is it easy? Is it obvious? And what is motivating them to do that? So this is basically how you do it. We want you to start with optimizing, or the next step would be optimizing your call to actions. So those are the buttons or the links and what you're asking them to do through that button or link. For example, if you have a call to action that says click here, that's a clear indicator that they're not optimized. If you're selling lipstick and you want someone to view your products, don't have a button that says go or shop. Have one that says shop for lipstick. It's more obvious and shows them what the next step in the flow actually is. If you have a multi-step conversion flow and let's say your button says next, instead of saying next, why don't you say next, complete your payment information if that's actually the next step. And better yet, you should also have breadcrumbs that show the user where they are in the process. So in one helpful hint on your call to actions, something that you will never have to test, just take our word for it. We've done these tests ad nauseum. Make your main call to action buttons on your pages a contrasting color than the main colors of your website. So, for example, if your website uses predominantly blue and green as a color scheme, make your main call to action button orange or maroon, something that contrasts on the page. Every single test we've ever run actually bears that out. You also need to optimize your forms. Are you asking only crucial information that you have to have? Eliminate anything that isn't required to get them to say yes. You can gather more information later, and you can use your analytics and other technology to get information without actually having to ask them for it. For example, if you're asking someone, how did you hear about us in your conversion flow? Please stop. It doesn't matter that much in the long run. And every question you ask, especially the innocuous ones, is a potential for fallout. So make sure your error messages are non-threatening. Make sure they're conversational. Place where the error actually occurred and doesn't have any weird behavior attached to them, such as reloading the page as a whole. We see a lot of that when we do web analysis. Understand that your website is not the top of the funnel. If you're running ads, that's where your funnel actually begins. Your website's listing on a search engine results page, or SERP, is where your funnel actually begins. So what does that mean? It means that the user is being introduced to your brand and your products and services off your site. So don't make them start over when they land on your site. If you're running an ad for one of your products or services, make sure that ad lands them on a page relevant to the ad that they saw when they clicked it. Don't start them over in the experience by sending them to your homepage. As a reminder, ensure that you're reinforcing your benefits and your value prop on all of those entry point pages. Okay, so next step, want to take that question? How do you guys brainstorm or find inspiration for content? Yeah, so a couple of ways are actually, we do it with the client, and because the client's always going to have ideas. And so using those tools certainly are ways to mine for ideas. So mention the site search. If your site search has a report, get that report because it's going to tell you what people are typing in, right? And then get your keyword reports and just keep running keyword reports and finding optimization words that you can actually optimize either on your site or create new content topics around. There's a lot of other tools like Google Trends is a good one that walks you through like topicals. You can type in your topic into Google Trends and it kind of shows you this graph of things that are relevant. And it's those are usually very timely, so it's based on a time period. So it tells you what people are searching for like right now.
Another tip that I have found useful is we're an agency, so obviously a third party can be beneficial because you're in the day-to-day grinding through your business. You may not realize things that are actually interesting and would be relevant topics because it just seems like the norm to you. So getting a third party's input or someone from a different department or a new employee, what they're noticing and the trends that they're seeing within the company or the way that you do things or with customers can also be a great way to brainstorm those topic ideas.
Okay, so next, we're going to move on to title tag and meta description optimization. If you're somewhat familiar with SEO, you probably know what these are. But if you're unfamiliar, don't worry. It's pretty simple. They are basically lines of code added to each page of your website that provide search engines information on what the page is about. And often your title and meta description, one of the reasons why they're so important is that they end up on the search engine results page. That's what the user sees once they've done an actual search. Sometimes Google will change them, but more or less that's what shows up. So how do you actually do this? So for one, you want to make it easy for yourself. So you can use a tool instead of going page by page. Generally, all content management systems will have an area when you're developing a page within it that has the section for titles and metas. In fact, I've never seen one that doesn't. You can go page by page. Don't recommend it. So there are tools, again, like the Yoast plugin, if you're using WordPress, that allows you to do those on one screen. So you can make bulk edits and just go all the way down and change those titles and metas altogether. Other CMS systems such as Shopify, they have a way for you to optimize those in bulk or in one screen too. So when you're writing these, you want to make it enticing, but you need to use your keywords. So remember two things. You want people to click on it when it shows up on the search engine results page. So you need to write those to convert, make it enticing. But you also want Google to love it too. So you need to use your keywords. So again, this is just one more instance where you're balancing these two topics to improve your site performance. So those have ramifications on SEO and CRO like everything else. So get a traffic report from Google Analytics and start with your most traffic pages. That's your beginning point. So where are people actually entering into your website? And then just go down the list. Stay within the character limits. Title tags should be 60 characters or under. So shoot for 55 to 60 to use that full space. Meta descriptions can be longer. We recommend writing those to be between 130 and 160 characters. Again, use the space. The good tools will have a counter as well that will show you where you are as you write them. So Shopify does that. WordPress, Yoast does that. So you don't have to use you don't have to count them manually, and you don't have to use another tool that will actually count it for you and copy and paste and all that. It should be right there all together. Okay, so we're going to talk about some technical enhancements. While everything we've discussed up to this point have been things assuming you're a non-web designer, can actually do. There's numerous more technical aspects to CRO and SEO that still need to be done, however. If you don't have a team or an employee with these skills, it's well worth getting them focused on these items. If you don't, it's well worth hiring someone who can. Some of these are the most obvious technical issues that we come across when we're doing our CRO and our SEO work. So first, always check for broken links, and you should do this routinely. So use a tool like Screaming Frog and find where you have broken links. People don't like broken links because it's a terrible user experience, and Google hates broken links, probably even more. It's the natural course of a website to acquire broken links. It just happens. You change your page name, you remove a page. You have to fix them. And there's a couple of different ways you can fix them. You can create 301 redirects that take it to a different page. You can actually fix it and send that link to a different page that's more relevant or that is relevant. So a couple of different ways to do that. One of the most important technical aspects to the user experience is your page speed and how fast your web pages load across a multitude of devices. For every second it takes for your website to load, you lose chunks of visitors. There are a multitude of page speed tools out there. Google supplies one inside of Google Analytics or outside. And it also gives you a bunch of additional information about your site performance. Another good one that we use is Pingdom. These tools will provide a list of items that download from your website and how long each one takes. Then gives you an estimated total speed with a grade usually. This is actually an actionable list that you can take to a web developer or web designer and work on making your site faster. One great example, which we'll touch on in a second here, are actually your images and your graphics. So next, work with your web host to ensure your website is on a secure server known as SSL. From a visual perspective, that means your domain, your URL, actually renders in browsers as safe and as HTTPS instead of HTTP. Google hates HTTP and loves HTTPS. And yes, that will impact your search rankings, just so you know. So last, check your robots.txt file. Your robots files is actually, that sounds highly technical, but it's actually a document that exists in your website that tells search engines what you want indexed and what you don't. Meaning, if you don't want certain things to not show up in search results, you can use that robots text file to actually block that. The robots file is even used to completely block the website from being indexed altogether. So this is actually a common practice for web designers to use while they're designing new websites. It prevents work in progress sites from actually showing up in search results. Unfortunately, it's also common practice for designers to forget they did that and fix it when the site goes live. We actually have a client that we're working with right now that came to us because their website wasn't working at all. And within 3 minutes, we found that the previous web designer years prior never actually removed the block on the robots file. And they lost who knows how much business simply because of that one thing. All right. I think we got some questions.
Yeah, one of them will be in a couple of slides, and then the other one we can come to in a second. So let's keep going.
Okay, got it. Hang on, water break. Okay, so next we want you to amp up your trust. Some buyers, actually a lot of buyers, are naturally skeptical of doing anything online. You want to ease those concerns with doing a few things. So if you can, add security seals that actually show their information is safe with you. There are third-party verification badges that you can get from places like McAfee or VeriSign and numerous others. Trusted Site is another. And all they do is they run a scan of your site and they allow you to use the badges. There's some free ones, there's some paid ones, but it goes a long way with certain buyer types to actually have these on the site. Next, add social proof. Tell customer stories that highlight their experience with you. Use their words. If you're selling a product, add product reviews. If you're a services business or a B2B business, think about putting together data-driven case studies with your customers. And just, a last note on that, don't fake it. Just be transparent and be authentic. If you try to end around it and try to fake people out, you're just going to get busted and it's going to cause problems later on. So just be authentic and let the reviews and the case studies be what they are. Okay, so moving on to image optimization. Images are always going to be a key part of the web user experience. They allow you to show things you can't describe in words. You oftentimes want to draw attention to something on your page using an image, and it also humanizes your website. You want to make sure that they're done right. Images and graphics, again, they play a key role in both SEO and conversion. So first, we want you to use the right format. Photographs generally should be JPEGs. Graphics can oftentimes be PNGs. Animations should be GIFs. There's a couple of other ones that are allowable that work in browsers, but those are the main ones. You also want to compress your images and graphics. Get them as small a size as possible without jeopardizing the quality of the image or the graphic. You can also use external plugins or an app to compress your images that are already exist on your site. There's tools such as TinyPNG or Kraken.io. That's actually a paid service that's really good, that they'll do this for you. If you're on WordPress or if you're on Shopify, again, there are plugins that you can get for free that will do a certain amount per month for you. If you already have a site built out, that may be the best route for you to go to compress your images. And as I mentioned earlier, getting those images compressed and those file sizes down are key to actually reducing your page speed load time, which is not only key for conversion, but also SEO. And then optimize your images with alt tags. So each content management system will give you the ability to add an alt tag. That's right there is a screenshot from actual WordPress. As you add media to your page, you'll see that there's a place to type in the alt tag there. So this helps Google understand and know what the image is and what content it's coupled with. And it's also key for if you want images to show up in image search on Google or other search engines. So have your keywords handy when you're inserting images on your web page, and write a nice, concise, keyword-rich alt tag for it.
Paul, we have a question about alt tags and really, I guess, how specific they need to be to the image itself versus using the keyword. So the question is, if you have an image on your website that's not necessarily related to your industry, i.e. kids playing in the front yard to communicate family values for an energy company, what should you put as the alt text for that image?
Yeah, use your keywords, and that's okay. But you draw a connection with the image to the purpose of the content. So if you're using, like that example, with the playground, create a sentence that says something around, have fun, while you're doing keyword business. Something like that. And you can kind of templatize it, so does that kind of answer the question? There's different ways to do it. I would say always work your keywords into it. Otherwise, it's just not relevant. Like you don't want to say kids playing on playground doesn't add any benefit to your website or image search at all. That makes sense?
Great. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, but let us know, Charles, if not.
If it doesn't, I can clarify some more. Just post in the comment. Okay, so next, don't forget about your previous buyers or your current customers, depending on what kind of business you are. Those that have already been introduced to your brand or your products, they always have a higher percentage of converting on that product again or that service again, or buying something else, which of course you probably already knew that. And you probably already know it's easier to sell something to someone who's already purchased from you than it is to sell to someone new. So communicate with them, send out emails, newsletters, promotions. That's always going to be higher converting traffic to your website. So send as much returning traffic to your site as you possibly can. If you sell a product, add subscriptions, recurring orders. That's a hassle-free order that costs you very little. All the e-commerce platforms have apps or plugins available to you in order to add subscriptions to your website. It's well worth the money and the investment to do it. Usually all it takes is one order to actually cover the cost of what those plugins cost you. And it's actually kind of cool because this is going to kind of ghost increase your conversion rate because you're getting an order without actually a visitor, because the customer actually never has to go to your website for you to get that order. So it kind of breaks the conversion formula, but it's a much easier way to actually get orders with it's just hassle free. If you're selling a product, do it. Okay, next, don't forget local. If you were on our social media webinar, we told you not to forget about local there too. Local is a great convergence of SEO, social, and conversion. If you're a local business, and I don't just mean restaurants or retail stores, a spa or salon or a mechanic, if you have a local business, you should be involved on the local sites. Not only is it a good way to tap into new traffic, but it enhances your SEO. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to claim your businesses or your business address at Google My Business, Bing Places, Facebook, Apple Maps, and Yelp. Make sure from there, once you have it claimed, and the way that'll work, if you haven't claimed your business, each will have a different process, but there's usually a button that'll show it, and you hit claim your business or a link, and it'll walk you through the process. Oftentimes they will call your business number, and all they're going to do is give you a code that you punch in or you say, and you're verified from there. Some of them might actually mail you something in the mail to the business address, and you just verified it. It's pretty easy. So once you have it verified, make sure you 100% complete your profile information. That means your address, your phone numbers, your hours of operation, descriptions, and especially when they ask you what type of business you are, make sure all of that is complete. And while you're doing that, while you're writing descriptions, make sure you use those keywords that you have a list of, that 25 to 40 keywords that describe your business. So then you can actually publish content to Google My Business, and you can also do that with Yelp too if you pay for it. But Google My Business actually shows recently published content on the search engine results page. It's free and it drives you traffic. So do it. There's no reason not to. You can also use their data and their analytics. Google My Business specifically gives you great information about how many calls you get, what keywords we're using to drive clicks, and more. So tap into that and use it to your advantage. Okay, and then last slide, we're almost done. So a few quick hitters. If you take payments online for your product or service, add more payment methods. So we recommend always having PayPal available. There's a trust factor with PayPal, so add it if you can. Think about adding pay in installments options such as Afterpay. So that allows somebody to actually pay in 3 or 4 installments for a product while you actually get paid up front. The installment platform actually takes care of the payments from there with the customer. It's actually really easy. So use cart or form abandonment functionality. So these are easy to implement if you're on a standard CMS system like WordPress, Shopify, or BigCommerce. So make sure in fact, a lot of times all you have to do is click a button and those automatically start aren't working. So those are people who didn't complete your form, didn't actually check out when they were ordering a product. Automatically send an email to them. What works best is actually giving them an incentive or a promotion in those, 5% off or a free gift if they go back and complete their purchase. That's actually one of the ways to plug a hole in your funnel, and it's an easy way to drive conversions back into your website. We've seen as high as 20 to 25% conversion rates on those cart abandonment type of emails that you send. One other thing that we've actually found is that a lot of people love slideshows at the top of their website on their homepage. We recommend that you actually don't do it. It's not beneficial. They don't improve the performance of your site. Slides past the first one are rarely seen. Plus, it usually only serves as a distraction away from delivering your main message and your value proposition. If you find yourself wanting to create a slideshow, there's other ways to get that information across. One of the obvious ways, if you're running a promotion, you can actually put a banner at the very top of your page. One of the most popular things that are happening right now, obviously for the last several months, are going to be like our COVID statements. Put a banner at the top of your page that links off to that. Don't interrupt the actual. Don't interrupt the user from trying to understand what your value prop is about with a slideshow. So this is, building out a robust About Us section is actually something you can do when you have time, and you can do it in stages. This is important for a specific buyer type who need to know more about you and understand who they're doing business with. It's also another place to reinforce your value prop, what you stand for, any altruistic efforts. Do you donate to charities? All of those things, your company history, your leadership bios, and more. This really puts a face on your brand. We recommend adding that after the other things that you've done with your content, specifically your value prop. That's more important. And then simplify your navigation. This is a pretty easy thing to do. Make sure your navigation is easy to understand and it's logical. Not everything has to be in your navigation, and it's okay to have different levels. So sometimes you'll see like about links or company links and phone numbers and things like that up at the very top, but it's not part of your main navigation. It's okay to do that. In fact, we recommend it. But make sure it gets your navigation gets your visitors to the most important pages and your products and services. Hold your main navigation to generally under 6 links. I think the sweet spot is more like 5. But if you find yourself getting 8, 9, 10, 11 links, think about that. Think more on that. And by the way, home does not have to be part of your navigation. Okay, it's standard practice. It's standard web usability nowadays that your logo is actually returns you to the home page. So you don't have to waste real estate by putting home in your navigation. Guys, that is it. We'll take any more questions. I know we threw a lot at you. And really this is a lot of surface area stuff, but I hope we've given you some actionable takeaways that you can go do now. I would say to summarize is to go back and look at the prep section and get your keyword list. Mine your data from your customer service reps and your sales reps. This is information that you're going to need along the way throughout this entire process. Start there after you've gotten Google Analytics on your site, if you haven't, and then dive into your value prop, tuning. Make sure you tune that up and make everything clear about what you offer and why you're different. And that's it.
Paul, great job. One question that we had that I wanted to come back to was what to look for in an agency or a web designer or developer to make sure that they are designing and creating a site that has CRO and SEO top of mind. Are there some questions to ask or just background?
Make sure their name starts with an I. Do that, but no. In all seriousness, I think ask for proof. Right? So ask for go through an exercise with them and see what they actually say and ask for some recommendation. It doesn't have to be a full-fledged audit, But we should, you should ask for some ideas on how to do that. And any agency that feels like they're really good at this should be able to, give you some actionable insight from that matter. And, that's what we do. So
yeah, and one more point is when you're asking for testimonials or case studies, not just judging the agency based off of design. While design is incredibly important and having a beautiful branded experience is valuable, ask about conversion through that site or what the traffic trends look like from this site versus just pretty pictures.
Yeah, and Ali brings up a good point. What you don't see in this presentation was anything regarding making it look pretty. So while yes, the aesthetic of your design is always going to make a first impression and it's important, what's more important is that it functions. And so, how we design sites is, an aesthetically pleasing site is table stakes. Everybody should be able to do that. Any agency you work with is going to design something or should be able to design something that you like from an aesthetic perspective. Whether they can make it function towards your goals is something completely different.
Great. Any other questions? We'll stick around for a minute. And if not, again, this was all being recorded and it will be sent out. And you can feel free to email us through our newly designed and launched website that we just launched last week with all CRO and SEO best practices. Feel free to reach out to us through that, through email, whatever is the easiest for you. We make it pretty easy to find us and get in touch with us. And again, we'll be sending this recording out. So it looks like we don't have any other further questions. Paul, great job. Thank you so much. And thank you all for attending. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.